So I'm going to talk about text embeddings. Maybe you've heard of them, maybe you haven't. This is something I'm really excited about, but I feel like doesn't get enough attention these days. But before getting into that, you might be wondering, who is this guy? Why should I listen to him? It's a good question. A little bit of background about me. 6 years ago, I was getting my PhD at UT Dallas. That's when I first got into AI. I was an applied AI researcher. Then I worked at Toyota. I was a data scientist there. Then after about a year, I went out on my own to become an entrepreneur, which means a lot of different things. So I did AI consulting, posted a lot of content. Like Yeshika mentioned, I have a YouTube channel where I post a lot of educational videos on AI. I also started a boot camp called the AI Builders Cohort. Had over 100 students in there. And I even took a crack at AI product development where I got a whopping 1 customer. All right, so let's talk about text embeddings. The motivation for this is that there's a big problem with text, which is you can't do math with it. For example, let's say you go to a networking event or you network after this presentation here. If you're trying to summarize or analyze the different ages of the people taking the summer school with Dallas AI, that would be a pretty easy thing to do. You can write down everyone's age, you can compute things like a mean, a standard deviation, you could plot a histogram, you could derive bins to put people into different segments. So that's a pretty easy thing to do because age can be represented with numbers. But what if you wanted to analyze people's job titles? That's not something you can really do directly. You're probably gonna have to read it and then manually come up with categories or something like that. So this is what text embeddings can help us with. And simply, text embeddings translate words into numbers. So we could take these job titles and we can translate them into these text embeddings. So these just numerical representations. But these aren't just random numbers. These are meaningful. They're semantically meaningful numbers. What I mean by that is if we were to generate these text embeddings and visualize them on a 2D plot, we would get something like this, where the engineers tend to be close to each other. So green is a machine learning engineer. This orange is an NLP engineer. We have a researcher over here. We have students over here, so a computer science student, AI student, so they're clustered together. And then we have others, so that's applied ML specialist, a data scientist, and an AI product manager. So text embeddings allow us to make text computable, and this unlocks a whole set of use cases. But you might be wondering, can I just use ChatGPT for this kind of stuff? Dump all the job titles to ChatGPT and say, hey, come up with categories, help me analyze this. Well, you can definitely do that. It's just important to understand the pros and cons between large language models and embedding models. Starting with LLMs, great pro of this is that they can perform the task directly. With LLMs, you just dump all the text you wanted to analyze in natural language, say what you want it to do. Also, LLMs are typically bigger and more capable than the embedding models. LLMs might be hundreds of billions of parameters, while embedding models are hundreds of millions of parameters, so like 3 orders of magnitude in parameter size. But there's some downsides. So bigger and more capable, that also means it's more expensive. It takes more time to process information, costs more money, especially if you're making API calls to OpenAI. It's limited by its context window. After maybe a few hundred job titles, ChatGPT might start having some issues in its ability to do the analysis. And the responses are unpredictable. LLMs are stochastic systems, and you're going to be sampling tokens one at a time in this stochastic way. So you can imagine it's like rolling dice one at a time and trying to get a very predictable sequence of numbers. Embeddings, on the other hand, the downside is it's going to require some downstream analysis. Since the embedding model is just giving you numbers, it doesn't really answer your question or solve your problem. You're going to have to do some additional analysis once you have the embeddings. Also, they're going to be smaller and less capable. But that also comes with the upside that these are going to be like 100 or even 1,000 times cheaper than using a large language model, which means faster. You can deploy it to an edge device or something like that. It's applicable to big data sets because you don't have to fit all the text you're trying to analyze into the model's context window all at once. You can do it one record at a time. You can have billions of job titles being processed by this system. And the output is deterministic. So embedding models, any text you give into it, it's going to have the same numerical output every single time. What this unlocks is all the traditional machine learning and statistical tools that we've had for the past 100 years or so. So we can do things like text classification. We can embed emails, figure out which ones are spam and which ones are not spam. We can do clustering, so we can do something like customer segmentation, get a bunch of customer data, and find natural clusters. And then we can do regression. So let's say you have support tickets coming in, and then you can generate embeddings for them and try to predict the estimated handle time for that ticket. Let's walk through a code example. This is real data, it's a real use case, and so this is a big problem that I'm facing, is that I have this class called the AI Builders Bootcamp, but I don't know who my ideal customer is, which is a big problem for a business. Because if you don't know who your customer is, how do you know how to position your product product or service? How do you know to write your copy on your landing page? How do you know what marketing channels to go after? It's a really big problem for businesses, especially me. I have all this data though. I have people's job titles, and I have the reason why they joined the course. So I have a diverse range of job titles and join reasons, but which one of these segments, which one of these groups are my ideal customer? This is something I'm going to try to solve with text embeddings. The solution is I'm going to use this student data to predict the probability that someone will leave a 5-star review for the class. Here's a basic flowchart of what we're going to do. We're going to load in the student data with pandas. We're going to embed the join reasons and the job titles using OpenAI's API. Then I'm going to use sklearn, so traditional ML here, to reduce the dimensionality of the join reasons. And then I'm going to do some categorization of the job titles. Then I'll load in some review data, join it with the student data, train a logistic regression model, and then we'll analyze the model coefficients so we can get a sense of which input variables predict the probability of a 5-star review. So we can directly see what inputs increase the probability of someone leaving a 5-star review, or which inputs decrease the probability of someone leaving a 5-star review. All right, so let's go to the code. So I'll call out all the codes on GitHub. I can share the link in the Zoom chat. Just want to call out the GitHub exists, and then we can go download it. I'm in the repo, so I already cloned it. We've got some notebooks. Let me just do a UV run Jupyter Lab. So I recently switched to UV, which has been really nice. If you guys aren't familiar, I'd recommend checking it out. I don't want to take up too much time going through the code, so I'll just go through this quickly, and then if you guys have specific questions, we can talk about during the Q&A. First, I'm just going to import a bunch of stuff. So pandas and NumPy. So pandas helps us handle data in Python. NumPy lets us do math. sklearn for the ML stuff, and OpenAI to generate embeddings. I have this .env file where I have my OpenAI API key. So you're going to need an OpenAI API key to generate these embeddings. You can just get that from their website. And then I'm loading it in using this .env library, but you can also just hard code your API key into the notebook. If you do that, just don't share it with anyone, because then they'll have access to your API key. I'm going to skip over this function for now, but we're going to load in the data. So I have the student data here. Actually, let me just run this whole notebook. So we have the student data here from a CSV file, and then I'm going to drop some missing values. Here I'm just dropping if they didn't respond to the question, why did you sign up for this course? And I'm going to drop all the rows where they don't have a job title. And then we can just take a peek at the data just so we have a sense of what it looks like. Oh, I don't have my API key in the notebook. The joy of live demos, right? It always happens. Yeah, so I've got this secret.env file, which has my API key in it. I'm just going to paste that in, and then we'll try to run this again. This is what our dataset looks like. It's called DF students. It's really simple, just 2 columns. We've got a job title, and we got the course join reason. But we need to turn these into numbers so we can do math with it and apply it to our various machine learning approaches. First thing I'm going to do is generate these embeddings. So I have this function called compute OpenAI embeddings, and that looks like this. So it's just a few lines of code, so we can just make this API call to pass in this list-like object of all the text we want to embed, and then we can select the embedding model. So I'm using their small embedding model, which is like 2 cents for every million tokens. So it's like super cheap. For context, GPT-4o is like $2 for a million tokens. So this is about 100 times cheaper. Then I'm just doing some manipulation. I'm extracting the embeddings and then turning it into a NumPy array. Once we have it as this NumPy array, I'm going to apply PCA to it, because what we're going to get is 1,500 dimensional vector. So we're going to have 1,500 numbers for each piece of text, for each join reason. And that's a lot of numbers to pass into our logistic regression model. So I'm going to reduce the dimensionality to just 5. And then I'm just going to rescale the numbers so they live between -1 and 1. I'm going to add these scaled numbers to our data frame. So here's the same data frame, but now we have these 5 additional columns that are numerical representations of the join reason. The next thing I'm going to do is to categorize the job titles. So basically, the way this is going to work is I'm going to come up with these different categories. So I have 5 categories: individual contributor, manager, leader, entrepreneur, and student. And then I'm going to have a bunch of keywords that are associated with each of those categories, and I'm going to embed all of those things. So that's what I'm doing here. So I'm embedding all the job titles from the data set, and then I'm embedding all these different job categories that I just came up with. And then what we can do is basically a semantic search. So if you guys are familiar with RAG, retrieval augmented generation, this is basically what's happening under the hood. But instead of matching a single query to a set of chunks, here we're going to match one of 5 possible job categories to each of the job title embeddings. embeddings. So that's what's happening here, and it just comes down to doing a dot product between two matrices. We can talk about the math later if you guys are curious. But basically what's happening is we can do a classification by saying that job category, which is the closest in this high dimensional space for some job title that we're interested in, we're just going to classify that as the job category. But the punchline here is we're going to just have these job categories now, and then we can do this one-hot encoding where we take these categories and turn them into these Boolean rows. So again, we've turned the words into numbers that we can do math with. And then at the end, I just import some review data, which is just a simple data frame. Just has the student's ID and then the rating. 10 is 5-star review, 9 is 4.5, and so on. And then I bring it all together as a final data frame. So we can see what this final data frame looks like. We've got the job title, the join reason, all the principal components of the join reason, the job category, the one-hot encodings, and then we have if they left a 5-star review or not. So notice there are a lot of nans in the ratings. That's because not everyone left a review. That's still going to be something I take into account in the analysis. So I'm just going to quickly show the results here. Your traditional machine learning. So we're going to load in this data set we just created. I'm going to pick out the predictor variables that I want to use and the target variables. List out these predictors here. So I'm going to have 10 predictors, 5 for the join reason, 5 from the job category. So these are going to be the principal components from the embeddings. They're going to be one-hot encodings of the job categories. Then I'm going to do a train test split. So I'll use 90% of the data for training, 10% for testing. Then I'm going to train our favorite tried and true logistic regression model. And then I'm going to print some performance. So this is the model's accuracy, the AUC score, the F1 score. And then here's the whole point of doing this analysis, which is the logistic regression coefficients. So this is helpful because this tells us that if someone is a leader, that has a positive impact on their probability of leaving a 5-star review. So this is telling me that leaders tend to really like the boot camp. And then entrepreneurs are a similar thing. So if someone's an entrepreneur, it increases the probability that they leave a 5-star review. On the other hand, if someone's an individual contributor, it significantly decreases the probability. So I think there's a couple nuances here. One is this is more so they just didn't leave a review. Another nuance is that most of the people that take it are individual contributors. I think that's like 38% of people. And then managers, like not much. This is also an interesting one. So this PC3 join reason has the most significant impact on leaving a 5-star review. The only challenge now is now we have to go and interpret what does PC3 of the join reason embedding actually mean. So that would be like a further analysis. The next steps are to interpret the meaning of these principal components. So we know they impact 5-star review, but what do they mean? How does that translate into some business insights? We can explore some other target metrics. So here I just looked at 5-star review, but not everyone left a review, which might make this harder to interpret. So we can look at behavior metrics, like how engaged people are in the course, include more predictors, like where that student came from, the company size that they work with, and then maybe to use a large language model to do the job categorization because the matching strategy may not have been super effective. That's basically it. Let me go back to the slides and happy to do Q&A. I'll call out if you guys want to connect on LinkedIn, happy to connect. Just leave a note because I get a lot of connection requests, so I don't want to miss it. Just mention Dallas AI and I'll know. Yeah, question.
Yeah, you said it came from OpenAI, but I'm guessing OpenAI has a lot of models you could choose from. Maybe you could talk to them about some alternatives to OpenAI, like Hugging Face. And let me just give you some context where I'm coming from. I'm working on a project that involves a legal corpus, and I am looking for an embedding model currently. Thank you.
Oh, perfect. OpenAI has 3 embedding models. They have this text embedding 3 small, text embedding 3 large, and then they have one called like ADA something. That's like their oldest one and most expensive one, so I wouldn't use that. There are a ton of embedding models that you can get. I'll just call out the sentence transformers library. So these are a bunch of like relatively small open source models you can run locally on your machine. The reason I didn't use it in this example is because it would have made the example slightly more complicated. OpenAI just makes it easy, but you got to pay for that ease of use. And then also the Hugging Face Hub is a great resource like you mentioned. You can go and find, let's see, they just changed their sorting. There should be like feature extraction. Let's see, natural language processing, feature extraction. So if you click on this, go to NLP feature extraction, you can find a bunch of open source embedding models. And then maybe you can find something on legal. There might be like a tag or something like that for legal stuff. Maybe not. We can try to go here, try legal. Okay, so there's some things, you know, this is the internet, it's the Wild West. So you gotta take a look at the downloads, the likes, and do a little bit of due diligence before you start using a model. Look at the license if you're trying to use it for a commercial use case. Those are some great options for open source embedding models.
All right, let's get some questions from
the chat, yeah.
Real quick. question is, what's the correlation between LLM and text embeddings? I thought even LLMs partially work using the vector embeddings that they look at before RAG to give responses.
Yeah, so they come from like the same place in a sense. Maybe they have a common ancestor if we want to think about biology. LLMs, you give it text, they spit out text, and usually that text is helpful, hopefully. Embedding models, you pass in text, they spit out numbers. So they fundamentally do different things, so that's the punchline. But a lot of times the way these embedding models are developed, you train a language model, kind of how you train a foundation model for a large language model, but then you basically strip out the head. So you don't want it to predict the next token, you just want to get the internal representation that the model is using to generate the next token. And then that becomes your embedding model. But then of course they do a lot of fine tuning to make it more helpful for specific use cases. So you might fine tune an embedding model like 5 or 10 times after that. They do fundamentally different things.
Any other question?
Yeah.
In your talk. And again, I'm speaking from the background of like you dealing with a legal corpus, and there's a lot of nuance there. So I'm hesitant to do any pre-processing, but I'm wondering, if you could talk some about that, the role of pre-processing before doing embedding.
Yeah, so I did a little bit of pre-processing, but it was really subtle because I kind of like snuck it in. If you notice that the input I'm passing to the embedding model, I'm actually prepending it with this column name. So I'm not just passing it the job title, I'm actually passing it literally saying job title, colon, and then inserting the job title from the data set. Then the model knows, oh, this isn't just some random string of words, like this is specifically about a job title. That's gonna be a little helpful. And I did a similar thing for the job category. Here I did like job title colon, and then job category colon. Maybe one more question?
Someone is asking, I think, did you use AWS for the training?
So I did train a logistic regression model, but this isn't like a large language model or anything like that. We've got a whopping 11 parameters, so we can run this locally on a laptop.
Thank you so much. If there are other questions, I would request you to please catch him up after the session.
Yeah, happy to chat more outside.
Thank you so much, Sean.
Yeah, thank you.
This was great.